$500 a month. In New York, London, or Sydney, that amount barely even touches real life. It disappears into electricity bills, internet, and a small fraction of rent before you ever get the chance to feel like you're actually living. But what if I told you that in some parts of the world, $500 is not a limit, but a starting point, not the beginning of scarcity, not the beginning of cutting back on every meal, but the beginning of a lighter life, one where money no longer constantly pushes you to run faster every single day. In those places, $500 can give you a genuinely nice apartment, not temporary, not good enough, but a space you actually want to return to every evening. Real light, real air, and the feeling that where you live is no longer a burden. And what truly changes everything isn't luxury objects, but the way daily life itself is taken care of. Not a cleaner who stops by for a few hours a week, not short-term help, but full-time help 5 to 6 days a week. Someone who cooks, cleans shops, and quietly removes the small tasks that have drained your energy for years. This is not a fantasy, not a dream polished for social media, and certainly not a sugar-coated promise. These are real numbers in real places where people are living real lives every day with slower rhythms and less pressure. In this video, we're going straight to the truth. We'll break down the actual costs, look at what daily life is really like, and clearly talk about the downsides, the things you need to know before even considering a change like this. Because this is not a story about living cheaper, it's a story about living lighter. Country. 5. Albania. Mornings in Tirana begin slowly. Sunlight spills across wide streets reflecting off the facades of newly built apartment blocks. People sit for hours in Italian-style cafes, sipping strong espresso and talking just loudly enough to be heard. No one is rushing. No one feels pushed to move faster to keep up with something unseen. From your apartment balcony, you can look out over the green expanse of the Grand Park or toward the mountains surrounding the city Mediterranean in feeling unmistakably European, yet without the pressure that often comes with Europe. And then, when you return to the number $500, the reality becomes surprisingly tangible. In good neighborhoods of Tirana, like Bloku or near the city's main park, a modern apartment in a newer building with stone floors, a clean modern kitchen, and a spacious balcony can be rented for around $250 to $320 per month. These are not old worn-down units. These are apartments that in Western Europe would easily cost 3 or 4 times as much. Full-time domestic help working 5 to 6 days a week typically costs between $130 and $170 a month. Add roughly $20 for household supplies. When you put it all together, the total comes to somewhere between $470 and $500. This is not a vague estimate. It's simple math, and it's a reality that exists today. But the real value isn't in the calculation. It's in the feeling of daily life. Inside that apartment, your day-to-day routine is quietly taken care of. Your helper cooks, cleans shops at the market, and keeps your living space calm and orderly. Not because you're wealthy, but because labor costs in Albania are still low, and household work is treated as a respectable profession. Meals tend to be simple Mediterranean dishes, fresh vegetables, fish, grilled meats, olive oil, light, healthy, and unpretentious. There's something distinctive about Albanian society. People are hospitable without being intrusive. The concept of besa, a code of honor centered on protecting guests, still runs deep in the culture. Younger Albanians often speak good English. You can live here without being interrogated about who you are, what you do, or why you chose to live alone. Privacy is respected. Age is not scrutinized. That said, Albania's position at number 5 is intentional. Alongside its exceptional value come very real downsides. Infrastructure is uneven. Some roads are brand new, while others feel unfinished. Bureaucracy moves slowly and can be frustrating. Many things require patience, something not everyone has, especially if you're used to the smooth efficiency of highly developed countries. So, Albania is not perfect. But for $500 a month, you are living in Europe, truly. Europe with blue seas, mountain backdrops, excellent coffee, warm people, and a genuinely nice apartment with full-time help. The value Albania offers is extraordinary. It's just still a little rough around the edges compared to the countries that rank higher on this list. Country 4. Peru. Arequipa does not greet you with noise. The city opens itself slowly and quietly, as if it has nothing to prove to newcomers. Buildings made from white volcanic stone reflect the morning light, creating an atmosphere that feels both historic and grounded. In the distance, volcanoes stand silently unchanged for centuries, a reminder that life here has always moved at a different pace. From your apartment balcony, you look out over a calm city where mornings begin not with horns, but with light and fresh air. Peru is not the cheapest country on this list. But with $500 a month, it offers something far more valuable: balance. In Arequipa, a clean, well-kept apartment can be rented for around $280 to $320. It's not flashy or excessive, but carefully designed and comfortable enough to feel like a place meant to be lived in. Full-time domestic help working 5 to 6 days a week typically costs between $140 and $170. Add roughly $20 for daily household expenses, and the total comes to about $470 to $500. It fits without abundance, but without strain. Peru's real strength reveals itself in everyday life. This is one of the world's most respected food cultures, not because it tries to impress, but because it has depth. Meals are built on local ingredients, balanced flavors, and long traditions. When your helper cooks in your kitchen, food becomes more than nutrition. It becomes part of daily culture. You eat more slowly, you notice more, and you realize that eating well every day doesn't have to be a luxury. Arequipa's climate is nearly ideal. It's rarely too hot or too cold. Days are warm, and bright nights are cool and comfortable. This consistency naturally slows life down. Nothing feels rushed. Integration comes easily because the city doesn't demand that you change who you are, it simply asks you to slow down. Healthcare is another area where Peru stands out. Lima has strong hospitals that serve both locals and foreigners. Larger cities offer private clinics that meet everyday medical needs. The expat community in Peru is well established and diverse, with many people who have lived here for decades, not because Peru is perfect, but because it is livable. Of course, Peru has its challenges. Some cities sit at high altitude, which can be difficult for newcomers. And because the country lies on the Pacific Ring of Fire, earthquakes are a real geographic risk. These are not issues to ignore, but realities to accept when choosing life here. Peru ranks number 4 because it offers a higher overall quality of life than Albania, with better infrastructure and more developed urban systems. It may not shock you with extreme affordability, but it delivers something more sustainable, a balanced life where cost, comfort, and peace no longer work against each other. Country 3. Thailand. If there is one place in Asia where life seems designed not to exhaust you, it is Thailand. Not the flashy Bangkok, not the crowded beaches of Phuket, but quieter cities like Chiang Rai in the north or Udon Thani in the northeast, places where the pace slows down just enough while services continue to run with surprising efficiency. Mornings in Chiang Rai begin gently. The air is cooler than you might expect. From your apartment balcony, you look down at a still blue swimming pool, a security guard at the entrance, and locals heading to the market early in the day. The modern apartment buildings here don't feel temporary or improvised. They come with elevators, pools, basic gyms, and 24/7 security features that in many other places would be unthinkable at this budget. Then there are the numbers. A good apartment outside the tourist core typically rents for around $280 to $320 a month. Full-time domestic help working 5 to 6 days a week usually costs between $160 and $190. Add roughly $30 for everyday household expenses. When you total it up, the cost lands right at $500, not with much room to spare, but in a way that feels comfortably balanced, almost as if the system here is built to function at that level. But what truly places Thailand at number 3 isn't the math. It's the feeling of daily life. Things here are standardized at a very high level. A domestic helper doesn't just clean. She knows how to cook, how to shop at the right time, how to choose fresh ingredients, and how to move in rhythm with the household. You don't need to explain much. Everything happens the way it should, quietly and efficiently. Thai cuisine is a world of its own, not just the familiar dishes seen in Western restaurants, but hundreds of regional variations. Slow-simmered curries, balanced sour spicy soups, and simple street foods that carry remarkable depth. Eating well in Thailand isn't a reward, it's normal. And that normalization of quality is what quietly elevates everyday life. Healthcare is another major advantage. Thailand has long been a global medical tourism hub. Even in smaller cities, hospitals are clean, modern, and staffed by well-trained doctors. A doctor's visit often costs just a few tens of dollars, sometimes even less. Procedures that take weeks to arrange in the West are handled quickly, clearly, and without unnecessary stress. Of course, Thailand isn't perfect. The heat and humidity can be draining during certain months, and air conditioning is essentially non-negotiable. Visa rules also require careful attention as they change and are not always simple for long-term stays. This isn't a place where you can forget about paperwork. Still, it's that overall balance between comfort, service, safety, and accessibility that earns Thailand the number 3 spot. It's not the cheapest. It's not the most untouched, but it may be the easiest place to live on this list, a country where you don't have to constantly adapt, but simply allow yourself to slow down and let the system do the rest. Country 2. Vietnam. Da Nang wakes up with light. Not the harsh glare of massive megacities, but a softer light reflecting off the sea, slipping between rows of high-rise apartments along the coast. Mornings here carry a faint scent of salt in the air. Motorbikes hum just loudly enough to remind you the city is alive, but never so loud that it feels overwhelming. From your apartment balcony, the ocean stretches out in front of you, while behind it, orderly neighborhoods continue to grow quietly and steadily. With $500 a month, Vietnam feels different from the countries before it on this list. This is not a place that is finished. It is a society in motion, building, expanding, changing. And that momentum is exactly what creates the value you're seeing. A modern beachfront apartment in Da Nang with an elevator security. A wide balcony and abundant natural light typically rents for around $280 to $320. Full-time domestic help working 5 to 6 days a week costs about $130 to $160. Add another $20 to $30 for small household expenses, and the total lands between $470 and $500. No squeezing, no sacrificing comfort. But Vietnam's ranking at number 2 isn't just about price. It's about everyday life. The food here is fresh, light, and balanced. Greens, herbs, clear broths, minimal oil. Eating out is cheap, but eating at home when someone cooks for you daily becomes a consistent, healthy routine. Meals don't weigh you down. they leave you feeling better. Vietnamese domestic workers are known for their diligence and attention to detail. They notice the small things, the floors, the corners of the kitchen, how items are arranged. Everything is done quietly, without show, but with consistency. And it's that consistency that brings a sense of stability back into daily life, something many people lose after years in high-pressure Western cities. Da Nang is one of the cleanest and safest cities in Vietnam. Streets are relatively wide, and the air compared to larger regional megacities is easier to breathe. Internet service is fast and reliable, more than sufficient for work entertainment and staying connected to the outside world. Healthcare is also evolving rapidly. International standard hospitals are increasing in number, quality is improving quickly, and costs remain low by Western standards. That said, Vietnam is not entirely predictable. Traffic can still be challenging, especially during peak hours. And visas require close attention. Rules change sometimes faster than you'd expect. This is not a country where you can live long-term without keeping an eye on policy. Vietnam ranks number 2 because it is more modern, more energetic, and more forward-moving than many countries on this list. But precisely because it is still transforming, it comes with a degree of uncertainty. For those willing to live with that change, $500 in Vietnam doesn't just buy comfort, it places you inside a society that is actively moving forward. Country. Cambodia. Cambodia doesn't try to impress at first glance. Phnom Penh unfolds at a slower pace, rough around the edges, sometimes chaotic but deeply real. Mornings pass along the Mekong River. Sunlight reflecting off its silty waters, people sitting quietly with their coffee unhurried and unbothered. In Kampot, life moves even more slowly. This small riverside town with mountains behind it and narrow streets ahead feels like a place where time is not being measured. Apartments here are not flashy. They are simple, clean, and well kept, just enough to make you feel like you're living, not waiting for something better to begin. And this is where the $500 figure reveals its true power. In Cambodia, a good apartment, not luxurious in a glossy sense, but bright, clean with a balcony and natural light, typically costs around $230 to $270 a month. Full-time domestic help working 5 to 6 days a week costs roughly $100 to $130. Add about $20 for small household expenses. When you total everything up, your monthly cost comes in at around $380 to $420. Not just within budget, but with money left over. And that leftover is what truly sets Cambodia apart. With the extra room in your budget, you could hire a part-time cook, or a gardener, or simply save the money and live without constantly calculating every small decision. Cambodian domestic workers are known for their dedication and quiet reliability. They work steadily without complaint, or show not because they lack options, but because stable employment is deeply valued here. Food costs in Cambodia are remarkably low. Local markets overflow with fresh vegetables, fish meat, and spices so affordable that you almost forget what it feels like to budget. Eating out is cheap. Cooking at home is even cheaper. Meals are simple, but nourishing, comforting, and enough to remind you that a modest life does not mean a deprived one. The expat community in Cambodia is one of the most diverse on this list. Retirees, small business owners, teachers, digital nomads, and people who have traveled the world and chosen to stop here. They come from different places and backgrounds, but share one common experience. Life in Cambodia feels easier to breathe. Making connections is natural through cafes, small bars, and informal community gatherings that form without effort. But Cambodia is not an easy place to look at. Poverty is still very visible, and you will encounter it daily on the streets in neighborhoods in people's eyes. Healthcare is also a major limitation. For serious medical issues, Bangkok is often the plan. This is not something you can ignore. It's something you must prepare for if you choose to live here. And that is precisely why Cambodia ranks number 1, not because it is perfect, but because its value relative to cost is unmatched. For $500 a month, Cambodia does not promise a dream. It offers something far rarer in the modern world, a life that is full enough, slow enough, and no longer driven by the constant pressure of money. There is no country that is the best. No place is perfect for everyone. There is only the place that fits the person you are becoming, not the person you were once forced to be just to survive. $500 cannot buy happiness. It doesn't solve every worry, erase the past, or promise a perfect future. But in the right place, $500 can buy you time. Time to breathe more slowly, to eat a meal without rushing to wake up, without the feeling of being chased by bills. It can buy you a lighter mind when small daily tasks no longer drain your energy, when life stops pushing you to spend more just to feel okay. And sometimes the greatest luxury isn't a beautiful apartment or full-time help, but a life that isn't driven by consumption urgency or the need to prove anything to anyone. If you had to choose a place to slow down to feel lighter, where would you choose? Leave a comment. And I'll see you on the next journey.